So we're going to do something a little different today on this channel because everybody loves rankings, and we decided to throw our hat into the ring with rankings as well. So, given that I'd finally just completed Resident Evil 9 Requiem, I thought that that would be a good idea to go back with my video game enthused, Mr. Sean O'Neill over here, and we decided to go through and rank every single Resident Evil game that came out. Now, some of these obviously had multiple versions and some of these are handheld games, which we're probably not going to spend a ton of time on. But with that being said, we're going to throw our hat into the ring and see how this whole thing breaks down. We've really not prepared too much in advance of this, so we're going to debate, probably yell at each other a bunch, and kind of see how this goes. With that, I am Mike, joined by Mr. Sean O'Neill. Welcome to the 716 Sports Entertainment Podcast. And Sean, let's kick this puppy off. So we won't start in any particular order. We'll just kind of go with like what we have here. So let's start off with the Resident Evil 1, the original. Now, we can take into account the GameCube version, the original version, however you want to do it. And give me your thoughts on where you think this game belongs on the list, and I will attempt to either agree with you or debate you one way or another.
So obviously, I am a huge Resident Evil fan. I've played a large number of the games on this list. They are my favorite video game series of all time. And without the first Resident Evil and the success we saw with it, we wouldn't have gotten the juggernaut that it is today. I didn't even realize there were as many games as there are. And the very first Resident Evil was something different for the time. It was the first real successful survival horror game. And when it came out in 1998, I remember playing it and I remember how hard it was and how scary it was. And taking into account the fact that the director's cut just took it, or the GameCube version, I should say, basically took it and made it even better. I don't think it's godly, but as far as this list goes, I think it 100% deserves to be in the great slot.
Yeah, I never played the original on play. I believe it was on PS1.
Yep.
But I did play the GameCube version. It was like one of the few games I actually owned for the little lunchbox when I had a little lunchbox way back when. And yeah, at the time that game was awesome. I remember playing through it pretty vividly. I remember like beating it with just a knife. I
Yep.
remember getting the infinite rocket launcher. I remember the weird zombie with the grenade vest that chases you around the whole game. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it wasn't the first game in this series that I played, but it was it was definitely one of I have very fond memories of this game. So I think I would agree with you when I would plug this one into the great category. So
Interestingly enough, that grenade zombie's name was Forrest.
thanks for that. Thanks for that. Let's move on to another one that was on the purple lunchbox, and that was Resident Evil Zero, which was the prequel to Resident Evil. Well, I mean, these are all kind of in some kind of non-canon weird story universe, but this one was a direct prequel to the first Resident Evil that came out on the GameCube, and it was originally just exclusively on the GameCube before it got ported to a bunch of other systems later on. So what do you think about Resident Evil Zero?
So, Resident Evil Zero is, for me, an interesting case story. The game itself is fun, but there were parts of it that I was just not a big fan of at all. And I think the biggest complaint that I had about it was I hated the fact that they took the item boxes out of it. It made the game so much harder, having to constantly backtrack to pick up items that you had left behind. And I hate, I mean, the Resident Evil games are notorious for having to backtrack anyway, because you have to go back with the keys that you find and so on and so forth. But to have to do that even more to pick your stuff up, I absolutely hated that. And I don't think that's enough to drag this down into a super bad ranking for me. And so I think I would rate this one as good. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the remake of this that we're supposedly going to be getting.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. The the item box thing was really bad. And honestly, the Resident Evil 1 on the GameCube had the tank controls, but honestly, the tank controls felt worse in this one. This game felt like it was harder to play. It was so clunky. The puzzles were so terrible. The enemies, especially those like weird leech things, were
Yep.
incredibly unoriginal. And I just overall thought the game was kind of dumb. So I'm gonna put this one into the okay category.
Also, you have it even lower than me.
Yeah, I would say this one is just okay.
I just went and replayed through this one not too long ago because actually I replayed through almost all of them. But you know what? You talked me into it being just okay.
Next, I'm going to go to a really old one. On the Game Boy Color, we have Resident Evil Gaiden, which was a action adventure game on the Game Boy Color. And boy, oh boy, does this one show its age. I watched a video of this one a little bit earlier today, and I believe this one stars Leon and Barry as the protagonist. The game's supposedly like non-canon, allegedly.
Yeah.
Like main parts of the game are ignored, but this one plays as I believe like a top-down sort of like shooting type of game on the Game Boy Color. This one, I from the video that I watched and kind of like just a sort of a quick playthrough of it, this one looks like a disaster. I mean, granted, the game it's a Game Boy Color Resident Evil game, so the survival horror aspect of this is just sort of completely removed. Uh,
Yep.
so I would probably want to put this into one of the bad categories.
I would put it in garbage. I think that these are the type of game that Resident Evil is can't be translated to a handheld like the Game Boy or Game Boy Color, and the fact that it is straight up non-canon because it makes almost no sense is dumb, and it's not survival horror. It took away what was the main attraction of the Resident Evil series at that time.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. Speaking of games that I don't really feel are also a part, I mean, I don't actually remember if this one was actually a part of the Resident Evil universe or not, but I just remember this game being garbage, and that was Resident Evil Dead Aim, which was a light gun shooter Resident Evil game. I believe this one, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this one came out for the PlayStation 2
Yep.
in 2003. And I don't think that the events of this one were canon either, but this game was an absolute disaster. It was so bad to play. You could only play this one with a light gun, if I wasn't mistaken. And yeah, this one was just bad. This one was really, really bad.
So Dead Aim is actually considered canon.
Is it really?
Yes,
Wow.
it's part of the Gun Survivor series. So technically in the timeline, it's right after Code Veronica.
Okay.
It The Gun Survivor series, we'll talk about some more of them as we go through here as a whole, was 100% the product of Capcom trying to buy into the popularity of the light gun games at the time.
Mhm.
Problem with something like Dead Aim is the fact that it was incredibly clunky because it you when you moved it was in third person, but then it would switch to first person for the shooting,
Mhm.
and it didn't play super well, and no doubt that's because it was a PS2 light gun game, and most of those games didn't play very well. But I would definitely put this on. I don't know if I'd go straight garbage. Actually, out of the Gun Survivor ones, yeah, I'd say this is garbage.
Fair enough. Let's stick with those Gun Survivor ones and actually move to the PS1 version of Resident Evil Survivor, which was also a light gun shooter game as well. And yeah, I remember playing this one on PlayStation 1. And supposedly, from what I remember, this one was a little bit better. I believe this was the first in the line
Yep.
of gun series games. So it was like inventive at the time, but if you go back and play this one now, I can't imagine this is very good and very easy to pick up and play again.
So the big problem with this one is the fact that the American version of Survivor didn't allow you to actually use the light gun with it. You had to use the controller, which made it pretty hard. The story for this one, though, was pretty good. Took place on Sheena Island, and I think that I would put this one, as far as this series goes, in the okay section.
Really, that high, huh?
I think out of the Survivor ones, this was the best one.
All right, then let's just quickly touch on the last one, Survivor 2. I didn't play this one at all, so this one is completely on you to speak on.
Give me one sec. I actually need to look something up in regards to it before I say it.
This one, I believe, was the one that was loosely based on Code Veronica, if
Yes.
I'm not
Okay. So
mistaken.
so I was remembering that correctly. I did think that it was based on that. And you played as Chris and Steve, Claire, and you could unlock Chris. Um, Basically, it's a the entire game ends up being, spoilers alert, a dream sequence for Claire. So
Mhm,
it never actually happened.
mhm.
But it was in light gun shooter officially. We had the gun support for it, and you could actually move around with this one. Like you didn't follow rails, which was kind of cool.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that this one falls in the meh. The only reason I gave the Survivor one a better ranking as better was because it was the first one to try something new like that.
Fair enough. Let's move on to a good one. Resident Evil 2. Any version. Resident Evil 2.
Oh,
I
this is
know you
easy.
could probably speak on this for a week, so I'll let you go ahead with this one, then I'll give you my counterpoint.
This is easy. This is Resident Evil 2, and its remakes are, in my opinion, we'll start with the original Resident Evil 2. The original Resident Evil 2 is my favorite Resident Evil of all time. And I think that the way it did the story was great with the zapping system, where what you did as one character impacted what you did in the second playthrough. I think the addition of a stalker character for the first time was huge because obviously Lisa Trevor wasn't introduced till the remake of Resident Evil. I think that the story for it was absolutely amazing. And this, with Resident Evil 2, this is where Sony fully got behind Capcom, I think, to support the Resident Evil series because the ad campaigns for this, everything for this were humongous. And then the remake of Resident Evil 2 is, in my opinion, exactly how all remakes should be done. It did the same loose story overall with brand new things and some new sequences and some branching segments that went off from things you didn't see in the original game. This is 100% in the godly tier for me. Every version of it.
Yeah, and it mostly that was the one thing about this from the original to the remakes and everything else like that is you're right, it did add a few things and it subtracted a couple of garbage things, but it mostly kept everything the same. And if you're going to remake a video game, this is how you remake a video game. This is what I wanted out of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like one game that was mostly the same game that just added or subtracted like some quality of life stuff from the 1997 version. So, yes, I completely agree with you. This is one of the best games in the franchise. Moving on to another remake, Resident Evil 3. Now, I want to talk about this one first, because I actually finished this one, the remake of this one, and the original of this one before I beat two, because I was kind of all over the place. I am going to go out on a limb here and say the original PlayStation version of Resident Evil 3 was better than the remake because I think the remake cut out a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
It was way too short and it felt mostly just like I was kind of watching a movie. Like it was very easy to get through and it was way too short. But the original game was excellent. The Nemesis is one of like the most, I mean, other than Wesker, obviously, the Nemesis is the most famous like monster villain in
Iconic.
all of these games. Like there is not a more famous monster villain in this besides like the regular zombie, right? Like the monster villain of the Nemesis is like what this series is known for. So I would probably want to put this one into the great category, but I'll let you convince me one way or another here.
So if we would have to split this into two to put it in the great category, but since we're combining it, I think that the remake drags it down into the good category as an average. I think that the original Resident Evil 3 for the PlayStation 1, I got it for my birthday, I think, the year it came out. I still remember playing it in that opening sequence where Big Nem dropped down, said uttered stars, and then put his tentacle through Brad Vicker's head.
Hmm.
And how awestruck I was seeing that. And I can't even begin to tell you how excited I was for the Resident Evil 3 remake when that was announced. And I remember because it came out right before COVID and or right as COVID hit. So I remember playing it during that. I was have never been more disappointed in a remake. The it's not the story or anything that was where the problem was because the story itself was fine. It was the fact that you cut out such huge segments of the game. You cut out the entire church part. You cut out the entire disposal factory, and you cut out the park with the gravedigger worm. Like those were huge, huge parts you cut out, and it just like you said, it felt short. It felt easy, and as cool as it was seeing the iconic Nemesis in current gen, it didn't do enough for me. So unfortunately, I think that that drags how great the first version of it was just down to the good category.
Fair enough. Let's shoot over to some there are quite a few Nintendo ones here. So let's shoot over to some of these Nintendo ones and let's go to Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. And we'll start with one and then we'll go to two. Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles was, I believe, on the Wii, and it
Yep.
was an on-rails shooter. And I believe this one was not canon because didn't you kind of start with fighting the Scorpion in Resident Evil Zero on the train, and then you kind of just went all over the place? Please correct me if I'm wrong with this, and if I'm misremembering this completely. But I don't believe that this game was canon, if I'm not mistaken. I do remember fighting a Scorpion on a train in the very beginning of this game.
Um, so it's canon in the sense that you were replaying parts of like the original games,
Hmm.
but they added extra stuff to it that sort of embellished on it a little bit. So like the parts that were like for Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 1, and Resident Evil 3 are considered like upgraded versions of the original canon stuff. I think that
It just
start
it like encompassed it. It just it kind of it wasn't really, not that it wasn't canon, I should say, is it was more of just like we're gonna just take a bunch of things from all of the games and just put them onto an on rails shooter is what they kind of did.
yes, it was just all over the place. And I think for this one that dragged it down a little bit for me because the idea of this as a light shooter on the Wii was really fun. I played the hell out of this along with the House of the Dead rail shooter for the Wii, and it just it would have been a little bit nicer if it was more coherent. So I think I put this one just in the okay spot.
Okay. And then Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles as well, which I believe was also on the Wii.
Yep.
This one, similar to the Umbrella Chronicles, this one focused on Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil Code Veronica, mostly as a, again, on rails shooter.
So,
This one I remember being better than the
yep.
first one, considerably better than the first one. I'm almost half tempted to move Umbrella Chronicles down and put this one into the okay category, but I'll go with whatever you think here.
I was actually going to put this one in the good category because I think that it took everything that Umbrella Chronicles tried to do and improved it. The story itself, you had not only the stylized retellings of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil Code Veronica in it, but you also had the side story of that had Leon and Krauser. So you got to see the story that of how they worked together before everything that happened in their future adventures, which
Mm.
I thought was really cool. and they did a real good job with that, which that part is officially canon. The operation, what the hell was it called? Operation Javier was a canon scenario, and it actually was a really cool scenario. Introduced new monsters, fun stuff, and the whole game itself ran real smooth on the Wii. So I think this one was definitely better than Umbrella Chronicles, and definitely deserved to be a row ahead of it.
Let's move on to Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, which came out on the PS3, the Xbox 360, in and around 2012. And this one was set around the same time as Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, and it featured a bunch of characters from those games. Non-canon game for this one, but it was just kind of following a group of private military contractors, I believe, through Umbrella City during the Outbreak. So I don't remember much about this one, but I just remember that this game was really popular with a lot of people because a lot of people kind of thought it was going to be another Resident Evil game, but then like a lot of people who got it were kind of disappointed with it.
I personally loved this game. I know it's non-canon. I actually still go back and play this game to this day. It You play as members of the Wolf Pack, who are a group of Umbrella, basically private soldiers, a special ops team that basically like the team that went in to get the G virus from Birkin,
Mhm.
but this particular team was trained by Hunk, so they were even more badass. And the story itself was fun. It took place at the same time Resident Evil 2 was going on. And it was the way it sort of played around with the timeline, I think, was very fun. And it was multiplayer, and each character that you could pick to play as had their own like individual skill sets and everything. So I personally loved this, even though a ton of people hated it at the time. So I would rank this in the good, but I think based on how it sold and how
It actually
everybody,
sold quite well. It sold quite well.
I mean, as far as like ratings and everything after
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
I think that it probably would end up, if you asked most of the Resident Evil fandom, probably would fall into the meh. But I'm willing to say that it was okay.
All right. Let's move on to Resident Evil Outbreak 1, and then we'll do Outbreak 2. I didn't play Outbreak 2. I did play Outbreak 1, and I thought Outbreak 1 was a lot of fun. I had a great time playing Outbreak 1. This game, it was different. I don't remember much of the story because a lot of the story of these games kind of blended together for me, but I just remember enjoying the heck out of Outbreak 1 a lot when I played it. It had, at the time, I believe this was a PS2 game. This had like really excellent mechanics. I think they might have ported it to PS3 as well. Maybe I played it on PS3.
No,
But
PS2.
yeah, but this one was a lot of fun, and I have very good memories of playing this game. I think you and I played it together.
So this was the first one to try the ability to do co-op online.
Hmm.
So you had to actually get the network adapter for the PS2, which in the early days of the PS2 was, we'll say, interesting to say the least. I'm going to do my review for both of these at the same time because,
Okay.
in all honesty, Outbreak File 2 is literally just Outbreak some more.
Yeah.
Like it literally picks up the story right after, and they were fun. It was the idea of a co-op Resident Evil, I think, was something that nobody had really considered at the time, and it definitely made for some interesting mechanics with the Resident Evil tank controls and the story though of playing as like everyday survivors while the Resident Evil incident was going or the Raccoon City incident was going on, I thought was really cool. And I think that the fact that we got these characters acknowledged in modern day is pretty cool too, with Grace being Alyssa's daughter
Mhm.
in Resident Evil 9. I think the Outbreak games deserve to be in the okay spot.
All right. One, Outbreak 2, which moves us to Umbrella Corps, which is I mean, it's technically not a Resident Evil game, although it doesn't have the word Resident Evil in the title. This one, I believe, came out in 2012, 2013, and this was a PlayStation 4 game. And I remember bits and pieces of this one. This one played like a tactical shooter.
Trash.
And it was really just you played a bunch of BSAA soldiers, if I'm not mistaken, and there was a multiplayer portion that you could play that came out a few years later with this one. If I'm not mistaken about this one, I think the reason a lot of people hated this one was because it came out mostly incomplete, and then they had to release extra stuff for it later on. Like the multiplayer didn't come out at the same time the game came out, if I'm not mistaken.
That I don't remember. I remember that this came out and it was a PS4 digital only game, and the concept behind it was kind of cool, where you had your good guys of the BSAA and your bad guys of the Umbrella Corps, and then you had the zombies in the middle. So it was team versus team, but you could instigate like BOWs to attack the other team and everything, which was a cool idea, but the gameplay was trash. Like it did not play well. It did not control well. The graphics were it wasn't optimized well, and honestly, this goes in the garbage slot for me.
All right, just like that, huh?
Yeah, this was just trash.
All right. Let's move on to some more on the Nintendo DS, and I promise we'll get to some good ones in a minute here. But let's talk about Revelations 1 and Revelations 2. These ones were both on the Nintendo DS, but I believe Revelations 2 got ported to a bunch of consoles after the fact. But they originally both came out on the DS, I believe. And these ones, the first one, I think, followed Jill and Chris, if I'm not mistaken, and it was like events between two and was it no right after four, right? It was right after four that Revelations took place, and then Revelations 2 was after that, between five and six, and it followed Leon. Am I remembering that right?
So Resident Evil Revelations 1 was it took place between 4 and 5 because
Hmm.
it was the start of the BSAA.
Yep, I
And
remember
Resident
that.
Evil Revelations 2, it actually I don't know that I don't think Revelations 2 came out for the DS because it was originally released as an episodic thing
That's right. That's
for and that one was starring Claire. That one took place after 4, I believe. It actually would have been after 5 because I mean it never really told you very much because it was you played as Claire and Barry in that one with some side characters, and that was just garbage. Like I'm sorry, Revelations 2 was ass. But I really enjoyed Revelations 1. I think Revelations 1 uh belongs in the okay section. I think it was cool for what it did with the DS. I played it more so on the PS3 when it got moved up to that, but the storyline for it was really cool. The fact that it told you the history of like Chris and Jill and the founding of the BSAA and everything was really cool. And it added new monsters and fighting zombies and monsters on the cruise ship was pretty badass, including that lady who was trying to be sexy but turned into a monster.
right. Um, okay. One, we got two more of the kind of quasi games here, and then we have pretty much just mainline games after that. So let's just hammer those two out. Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D was trash. That was absolute trash.
I never played that one.
It was just mini games, and you had to like use the stylus on the 3DS to play that one. I remember getting this for the 3DS, and it was an effing nightmare. This game was so terrible, but it was mostly just a combination of like mini games that you could play on the 3DS. So, but it was
So
absolute ass. The controls were terrible. It was so hard to play, and it was so bad because you needed to use that stupid stylus stick for the 3DS to play this one.
so was it not like the normal Mercenaries mode?
No, it had a combination of like Mercenaries mini games from like Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5 in it. You got to do a bunch of different like objectives in them and stuff like that. So it was like mostly just mini games from what I'm remembering, but it was an absolute disaster. I don't think I made it. It's one of the few I never finished because it sucked so bad. It was so hard to play on the 3DS because you had to use that stupid stylus stick to do anything with it because you know how Nintendo was back in the
Yeah.
2010s when they were like, "Oh, use motion controls because they're great."
So, since I never played this, based on your description, I'm gonna guess you're putting this in garbage.
Yeah, it was pretty disaster. And then just one more quick one that I'm also wanting to put in garbage as well, and that's Resident Evil Resistance, which I believe was the downloadable one. You might have better to say about this one than I did, but that was the downloadable one that came with, what was it, the remake of 4, or was it Village that this one came with?
It came with the, no, not remake of 4, it was before then. I believe it came with
Village, right?
Village.
Yeah, and
No,
it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster.
regardless, I think the best spot for this one would literally be meh because the idea behind it I really liked. It was because everything's going on, or you have like your Dead by Daylight games, you had the Friday the 13th game, you had all those games where like the isometric, one player plays like, the killer and everyone else has to like play the survivors, which is basically what Resistance was. So you had one person who played like the umbrella mastermind and everybody else played the survivors trying to escape from them, and the Umbrella Mastermind would put like traps and like BOWs and stuff down, which in concept is a pretty cool idea. But right off the bat, it got delayed. And that because it was supposed to come out at the same time as the game that it was packaged with. Then it got delayed again. Then it got changed for a lot of people from, oh, this is just going to be free to everybody to, oh, we're going to start selling this, to the fact that they never really supported it. Like there was no push behind it. They never really did updates to it. It literally felt like Capcom looked at it, shrugged, and said meh.
Yep, you're exactly right. All right, let's move on to the ones we're really going to probably have some heated debate over, I think, here. And I want to save the two that I think we're going to spend the most time on until the very end. So let's move on to Resident Evil Code Veronica, which originally came out on the Dreamcast, then eventually made its way over to the PlayStation. This one, of all of them, is the most in need of a remake
Yep.
by far. And I know it's coming eventually. This one obviously starred Claire and Chris. You started off on the prison island, then you made your way out, throughout the rest of the game there. This one, I have mixed feelings on this one. I can certainly appreciate that this was a great game. I had a really hard time with this game because I played it I came into it way later in its lifespan than I did most of these other games that I played. And now, obviously, as you're kind of gathering from this list, I've played mostly just the mainline ones and a couple of the Wii Light shooters. There are some of these games I've not touched at all, but this one, I think I came into this one way too late in its life cycle to really appreciate it. Um, I can get behind the story because the story was a lot of fun, but I think I'm going to be able to move this one up the ladder when a remake comes out for it, just because it's way too clunky and it was way too not in a great spot compared to like the time when I played it, I think. So I'm basing this on I played this probably 10 years after it came out.
So I remember when this came out, I begged my dad to rent a Sega Dreamcast from Blockbuster so that I could play this.
Mhm.
And I played it. I beat it in the first weekend, and I loved Code Veronica. I That being said, you're 100% right. This game is the one game besides Zero that is in desperate need of a remake. And I'm very excited that we are getting one because I think being able to play this one with non-tank, non-clunky controls is going to be absolutely incredible. And I think honestly, the fact that this game originally released on the Dreamcast is another thing that hurt it.
Yeah.
Like the to this day, I still say, I mean, obviously we could do a video at some point ranking consoles. I think that Sonic was ahead of the time with the Dreamcast, and that's what killed them.
Yeah.
Like if they would have waited a couple years, I think they would have been fine. But this being released as a Dreamcast exclusive at the time when nobody had Dreamcasts, I think really hurt it.
Yeah.
I I'm willing to put this in the okay spot. I'd put it a little bit higher myself, but with your ranking, I think I'm out fine with okay. Like you said though, once the remake comes out,
I would definitely move this up once
as long as it's not a Resident Evil 3 style remake, yeah.
they don't cut out half the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's uh let's talk about the elephant in the room for a second here. And that is, of course, Resident Evil 4. I mean, what more can you say about Resident Evil games than Resident Evil 4? This game came out for the GameCube first, eventually. Now it's on every system out there, probably your phone as well. And it got a remake, which was absolutely spectacular. Um, this game saved the series. This game was the reason that like a lot of this garbage came out after the fact, and this game brought this entire series back to life, completely back to life from the edge of extinction. This game was spectacular. It was one of the best video games I have ever played. Still to this day, I can go back and play the original or the remake, and it's still absolutely fantastic. Leon became like a mainstay megastar in the like within the entirety of the series. The game was so much fun. It played so well. It had so much replayability. And I mean, not only was this one of the best I mean, not only in my opinion is this the best game in the series, it was one of the best games on the GameCube at the time it came out. So I would put this one in the godly category.
I can agree with you. I think that Resident Evil 4 was the first mainline game where Capcom took a step in trying something different. Because Resident Evil 4 was less survival horror and more action for the first time. And they found the perfect medium for it with what the way they did it with Leon. And I think, like you said, to your point, this was, in my opinion, the best game on the GameCube outside of like some of the Mario games. But I think that, in my opinion, I put it at the top of the list. And the remake that they came out with for this was also incredibly well done. Fixed a lot of the clunkiness of the original, some of the super awkwardness with Ashley. And even though it cut out some of my favorite dumb lines, I think that they did a great job with it. I don't think the remake was quite as good as the original. I still think the original was a little bit better in that case, but I think that it was on par with Resident Evil 2 in stature.
All right. Let's move on to the one that I have spent the most time on in this entire block of games here, and that is Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 was one of the few games where I did everything, every single chapter, every single difficulty, S ranking for every single one of them. Unlocked every weapon, beat every single multiplayer piece of that game. I don't remember if there was a platinum trophy at the time when it came out for the PS3, but I absolutely got it when it came out again for the PS4. We played the crap out of this game in college and all of the multiplayer on this game and running. And this was the one thing about this game in particular, because the story wasn't really that great, to be honest with you. Like Chris and Sheva, starting the BSAA, going after a weapons dealer, and then ultimately like refinding that Wesker was in charge of everything, and then just, you know, Chris punches a boulder at the end of the game and kills Wesker with the double rocket launcher thing, right? It did have some cool DLC stuff. The Lost in Nightmares one was pretty neat. That like kind of told you the story of what happened to Jill and Chris as they were going after Wesker. But loosely, the story kind of sucked for this one. It was really more just about the gameplay, the replayability. And this was one of the first games, not just in this series, but just in general. A lot of games would give you like bonus stuff for beating it, like the Resident Evil games and a lot of shooting games, especially. They give you bonus things for like beating the game, right? Like you get infinite ammo, you get infinite rocket launchers, infinite this, infinite that, more health, all that stuff. This game designed a difficulty, professional difficulty, that you was built to take those things into account. So you
Yep.
could play with those things on this professional difficulty, but it was so hard that you couldn't do it without it. And I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who are much better at video games than I am that did do it without it, but I could not. And I loved that like you literally built a mode of this game that was so difficult it required infinite ammo. And I thought that was awesome. So I'm putting this one probably in the great category just because I have such fond memories of it. I think if I were to go back and play it again today, because it's probably been about a decade since I've played this, I don't know if it would be as good. I remember those El Gigante levels really sucked, but I'm willing to put this one into the great category. What say you?
So Chris punching a boulder doesn't move it up into godly. I think that you put it perfectly. The game itself, the multiplayer for this, we played the shit out of.
Yep.
Like we played so much of this. And coming from somebody who's beaten Resident Evil 1 speed run and with just the knife, the professional mode for this one was so above and beyond difficult that you literally had to do it with the rocket launcher with two people.
Yep.
Like the amount of times we still died while doing this with the rocket launchers and two of us was insane. And I think I enjoyed the story for this one. I think it was goofy. I really enjoyed the Wesker stuff. And I just I wish there were more multiplayer games like this. So I'm really hoping that when they do the remake of this one, we don't lose in translation like how that was. Because all I know is we spent a good year, you and I, playing this, and it was
Hundreds of hours playing this game.
probably some of the best video gaming I've ever done with friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the black sheep of the group, and I think we're gonna have an argument with this one, and that is Resident Evil 6.
You mean the giraffe?
This one was dog shit.
No,
This one was absolute dog shit. This
no,
game
not at all.
was terrible. The story was all over the place. This one was so hard to play. This game was like if Michael Bay and like if Michael Bay directed a Resident Evil game, that's what this was. This game could just not figure out what it wanted to be at all. And it was all over the place. The gameplay sucked. The story was idiotic. I'm wanting to put this one into the garbage category, but I will let you try and save this game.
You're insane. So first of all, I love the fact that I love the fact that you stole my my Michael Bay description for this because Resident Evil 6 cared more about about effects and big moments and bombastic action than story. It's like if you compare the first Transformers movie to the second one with Michael Bay. And yeah, the first one had a ton of action and everything in it, but like the second one had zero plot. It was all just explosions everywhere. And
Yep.
that's kind of what I would say they did with this. Like, I liked the fact that you had the multiple like chapters where you played as the different people. I mean, I thought Jake Mueller was a terrible character. Wesker's son with playing with Sherry. But I think Leon and Helena's section was really fun. I think that Chris and Pierre's had moments that were pretty fun. And the Ada section was just obnoxiously hard. Um, the story was all over the place. I think the gameplay had some light, or not light to it, but some, what's the word I'm looking, positive to it, but not enough because it couldn't quite decide what it wanted to be. I can't I can't say it's garbage, but I'm willing for the sake of not arguing about how great this game actually is to put it in the meh.
All right. You know what? I can handle that. I can handle that. It is better than everything in the garbage category. I will give you that.
I still go back and play this one. I am
Of
probably
course you
one
do.
of like six people who enjoyed this
Of
one.
course you do. And with that, because obviously, again, even after Resident Evil 4 saved the franchise, Resident Evil 6 almost killed the franchise. So that brings us to the new line of games, and we'll start with Resident Evil 7. This game brought the series back to its roots. This game was survival. I mean, it had some action stuff in it, but this game was survival horror through and through. This game still to this day scares the crap out of me. Absolutely scares the crap. This game is terrifying. This is one of the scariest games out there to play, and it's a lot of fun. The Baker Mansion is nuts. There's a whole bunch of DLCs for this one. There's like one, I forget which one this one is called, but there's one where you're strapped down to a bed
Yep.
and you have to like escape from the bed, but every time the old lady comes back into the room, you have to like get yourself back into the bed or you lose. Yo, it was freaking terrifying.
Or how about the one where you're playing cards
Yeah,
and you keep losing fingers?
yeah.
Like
This game
I
was spectacular. I had a great time playing this game. I don't think it's godly, but I'm willing to put this one into the great category because it was excellent. It brought the story back to its roots, and it kind of sort of again saved the franchise. No
so
pun intended.
for the fact that it was a game about mold, I think that which was unexpected. You're right. They Capcom needed to do something special to come back from what Resident Evil 6 did to the series. And I still remember watching the original reveal trailer for this and being like, I don't know what to expect out of this. And then playing it, how, and then playing it in VR of all things, and how absolutely terrifying it was in VR. You're right. I can't quite put it in godly, but I think this one deserves to be in great for the fact that it brought Resident Evil back to the high points that it belongs in.
Fair enough. Got two left. Moving on to Resident Evil 8 Village. I spent a lot of time playing this game, and I really liked this game a lot. Um, I did get the platinum trophy in this one. I know you did not get the platinum trophy in this one. I I struggle with this one though a little bit because it had some really awesome spots, but it also had some really dumb spots. And it was way too long, for one thing. It's way too long. There were entire sections of this game I would frankly cut out. Um, the part you look for a fact for a game, well, like the centerpiece of the game was the village, you didn't really spend that much time in said village. You were in uh Demetrescu's castle for the first chunk of the game. And the advertising of the game also made it seem like she was the main villain when she
Yep.
wasn't. She should have been the main villain because the main villain in this game was really stupid. And
Miranda?
yeah, Miranda was dumb. And Demetrescu should have been the main villain of this game. And the stuff with Heisenberg was kind of cool, but the weird little goblin dude in the swamp was kind of dumb. And you get to run around the village a couple of times, and that was pretty cool. And you get to keep unlocking more and more parts of it, I guess. But like, I just thought that this game was way too long, and I thought Miranda kind of sucked as a villain. Demetrius Castle was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And this game this game, while good, I don't think I could go back and replay this game again just because it's too long, especially the entire part where you're in the factory, Heisenberg's factory. That took so long. And like it was so boring. Like that part of the game was so boring. It was so dark. And like it was just dark for the sake of being dark. Like it wasn't like mood settingly scary or anything. It was just like you're in a dark factory with no lights. And then the entire like final boss sequence, then you had to play as Chris for a little while and shoot like a laser light down at the end of that game. It's all kind of meh. I wouldn't put this in the meh category. I would probably put this in the okay category.
I think it should be in the good spot. We all know that you don't want to go back and play this because of the fetus monster. You're terrified of the
That's
baby.
true. That was the best
Um,
part of this whole game. Besides the Demetres castle, that like that house with the little Bienvenido doll was was pretty good. That was
Donna Bienviento,
that was
yeah.
yeah, that was original and that was cool, and I like that part.
I enjoyed this game for the most part. I unlike you, I enjoyed Salvador Moreau. I loved his little fishy goblin persona and the fact that he turned into a big Cthulhu monster that tried to eat you. Um, I think that my biggest complaint would be the Mercenaries mode was way too hard. And you're right, the game itself was it felt real stop and go with how long some of the parts were. Like you spent so much time in the castle, and then you spent almost no time in the Bienviento mansion.
Yeah.
And then you literally you got through the swamp with Moreau to his boss fight in like 10 minutes, and then you'd spend 3 hours in the factory.
Yeah, it was just
Like,
it might not have been that long, but it just felt long. It felt long because the pacing was off.
that's what it is. It's the pacing was bad. And the one thing I will give credit though is at least in this one versus Resident Evil 7, the final boss fight, which is against Miranda, is an actual boss fight, whereas the one in 7 really wasn't a boss fight.
Mhm.
I put this in the good category.
Which brings us to Resident Evil Requiem. I'll let you
There,
go first on this one.
there's one spot for this one, and it's right up there with Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil Requiem was incredible. The story they told, the dichotomy of playing Grace versus Leon, to me was super fun. I really enjoyed the excitement of Leon stuff after you finally finished sneaking around as Grace. It definitely made it something to look forward to. And I really liked the world they built. Like the fact that you could throw a bottle at another zombie to make the blind zombie attack them and kill them. The fact that you could just do all the goofy shit that you could do in this game. And I think that if future Resident Evil games look and feel as good as Requiem did, I think Resident Evil's in a good place.
So I'm gonna want this one to be in the great category and not the godly category. And I have a couple of I agree with most of what you said, but but the final boss was dumb. Was incredibly dumb. That whole fight with the final boss was dumb. The game itself was a bit short.
Yeah.
It was way too easy. Way too easy. Even the hardest difficulty of this game was way too easy. I mean, there are spots that are difficult to get through, but it isn't so much the difficulty of like getting through them. It's really just more of like you need to know like what sequence of with which to run Grace through things. None of the Leon parts are difficult at all. The
No.
the Grace parts are difficult mostly just because of trial and error, not because of actual difficulty. They're difficult because of trial and error. Like the part in the end area with the liquors,
Yep.
like that was just difficult because of trial and error, even on the hardest difficulty, like only on the hardest difficulty. But the game itself was actually very, very easy. I did not struggle with this game at all. I think of most of these games, I feel like I spent the least amount of time playing this game. I got the platinum trophy in this game. I know I'm so good at video games, but like I got it in like 20 hours, two and three playthroughs. Like, and it was quick, it was very quick. And like honestly, I don't think I'll pick this game up and play it again unless DLC comes out for it.
Which is coming.
Yeah, so like I'm not willing to say that this game was godly. It was a great game. It was a lot of fun. Not the best games, not up there with 2 and 4, in my opinion.
Okay, I can agree with you. The fact that it's short, you're right. The fact that once you've beaten it, there isn't a whole lot of reason to go back to it.
Other
So
than getting trophies, yeah. Like once you beat this game, there's about zero reason to play it again.
I can agree with you. I will agree that we can put it in the great category.
All right. So that is our list. How do you think we did?
I liked it. I like the fact that we're 716 Entertainment in addition to 716 Sports Entertainment. I think for our first ranking video, we picked a pretty good topic to talk about. Hopefully, our fans and our viewers, if they're Resident Evil fans, will check it out, comment, give us their thoughts, tell us where we're wrong. We definitely want to hear from you guys.
Oh, we absolutely want to be roasted. Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. And please like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate all the support. And if you guys do like this kind of content, let us know. We will happily do more of these. Maybe next time we'll pick something where I can maybe speak a little bit better to some of these games because I actually will have had played them, i.e., like maybe Zelda games or Final Fantasy games. I can definitely touch on those a lot more because they're, much, well, in the instance of Final Fantasy, much more story intensive. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. So with that, I have been Mike, joined by Mr. Sean O'Neill. Thank you guys, as always, so much for joining us. We appreciate all the support. Have yourselves a fantastic evening and take care.